It's the Shoal Weekly Podcast, bringing you the Greatest Showman, an online film festival celebrating all things Academy Awards. I'm your host, Joe, with Ben and Charlie. How you doing, guys?
Good, thanks, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Ben, how you doing?
Yeah, I am very excited for this one. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I feel like this festival, we've been planning it since January. It's finally here. It's come very quick. It's been a great weekend. Obviously, happy Easter to all of our listeners. I hope you're enjoying the best of this British weather. Obviously, no film of the day today, just a special podcast. And as always, do be sure to follow our socials for updates and news. Hit that notification bell, drop us a like or a follow, because we really appreciate the support. We are doing the Greatest Showman all the way through until the end of April, where we will be doing a live watch along of the 93rd Academy Awards. So stay tuned for that, because that's going to be a good one. This week, we have suggested 3 fantastic Academy Award winning films for you to check out at home. The most recent one is Moonlight from 2016. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that was 1975. And an oldie but goodie today as well, Casablanca, 1942. Is it the best film of all time? We are going to talk about that today for sure. But
spoiler,
it's
not.
Before we get onto that, what else have we been watching?
So this week, obviously, aside from our little curation of films, I did get time to sneak in the Netflix film Outside the Wire, which I believe was Anthony Mackie, also known as Falcon, and he kind of basically played the same role in this kind of near future sci-fi war film, which was quite cool. It was just an easy watch. I have a soft spot for those films, so I'm never too harsh on them. But yeah, it was good, entertaining.
And Charlie?
I watched another Oscar nomination. Was nominated for Best Supporting Actress or Best Actress, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's Pieces of a Woman, which is on Netflix. Why it wasn't nominated for Best Picture is beyond me, because it is like astonishing.
Was it this year, was it?
Yeah, nominated for this year, yeah. Unfortunately, it's got Shia LaBeouf in it, but
I mean, aside from politics, I'm a big fan of Shia's performances.
Oh, he's a great actor.
Obviously, he's not a very popular person to like at the moment.
No, but it's a really, really good film. Like it's astounding. Like, definitely go and watch it, especially because we're doing the Oscars this year. So get clued up on it before we do the live show.
Absolutely.
What about you, mate?
Obviously, Godzilla versus King Kong, or just Kong, came out on Thursday. HBO Max and various sort of like Now TV, Sky here in the UK. Managed to watch probably about 80% of it. Need to finish off the final 15 minutes. I think that says everything about the film, that I haven't been bothered to watch the final 15 minutes. As you know, I find with all kind of kaiju big monster movies, the thing that always ruins them and brings them down is just I don't give a shit about the humans in those movies.
Right, yeah.
And they always try and make it some kind of heartfelt relationship between the humans, and it kind of feels like they do all these stories and then it makes like the big monster battle like more of a backdrop than a front and center. This is supposed to be Godzilla versus Kong. I don't care about Millie Bobby Brown trying to break into some super confidential, like CIA base to try and prove the fact that this, they're building some kind of robot Godzilla. I don't care about that. I just, King Kong had more emotion in his CGI face than most of the actors in that film. So yeah, it's one to miss, I would say. A great popcorn flick, I think, if you just want to stick it on one night. Amazing visual effects, by the way. Absolutely outstanding.
It has been in the news quite a bit, because obviously it's especially in America, it's like the first big film to come out after like post-pandemic.
Yeah,
and it's made like 48.5 million or something. But is that just because it's like the only film to go and see at the minute?
Yeah, I think it's a big popcorn movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
AAA blockbuster. Lots of money been poured into it, so hopefully lots of money to come back. So yeah, I didn't pay for it, but we won't tell anyone that.
I'll edit that bit out.
Yeah. No one will know. No one will know.
But I did use my Amazon Prime subscription to support a much more budget film made in Italy. It was 2020.
Where was it made?
In Palma
In
Studios.
Italy.
It's Liam Neeson. It's quite an autobiographical film. Well, it's not. It is and it isn't really. He was really drawn to the script because it reminded him of his late wife, she was a famous actress and sadly passed away at the start of the sort of early 2010s.
Right.
So it's a film about this older artist who's just become very estranged from the world, and then decides to go to Italy with his son because his son needs to sell his mum's old villa to make some money. So they go there and they fix it up and they kind of rekindle, and it's very sweet. And what's really nice is that the guy who plays the son is also Liam Neeson's son. So they were kind of doing it both of them are kind of doing it for their late wife / mother.
Oh, that's
nice.
So it's quite touching. It's not a perfect film. It's a very cheap, very budget film, and some of the acting is quite hit and miss. But you can forgive that because it feels like a very, very personal thing for the Neeson family. So yeah, if you get a chance to watch that, definitely, if you had to pick between Godzilla vs. Kong and Made in Italy, I would say go and support a smaller film like that, because it was very sweet to watch. But anyway, of course, 3 films this week to kick off our film festival. We had Moonlight, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and Casablanca. Shall we talk about Moonlight first? I feel like we had a brief chat before we started recording, and there's quite a few contrasting opinions about Moonlight.
Yeah.
Chaz, why don't you tell us what it was nominated for, what it won, and then just give me your first impressions of it, really, because I know you're a big fan of coming of age films. One of your favorite films is Boyhood.
Yeah.
By Linklater. So yeah,
I never really thought of that as its own genre, but I suppose it really is, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm so drawn to it, but anyway. So it won Best Picture, Supporting Actor, and Adapted Screenplay. And it was nominated for Supporting Actress, Best Director, Cinematography, Editing, and Score. So it had quite a run at the Oscars. Yeah. But it was a good year for the Oscars that year. It was against La La Land, Arrival, Lion, Hell or High Water, Hidden Figures, Hacksaw Ridge, Manchester by the Sea, and Fences. So
all incredible films.
Apart from La La Land, according to you. Yeah. Hacksaw Ridge, man. That's class. It's so class.
That's great.
Amazing
Hacksaw Ridge,
film.
yeah.
Controversial opinion, but might be better than Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, I think it's definitely up there,
agree
with you. No, I'd take that over it. Yeah, I was Saving Private Ryan. There's too many for me. It's just like it never quite sucked me in. And Hacksaw Ridge from the off definitely gave me like better vibes.
Everyone's like main thing with Saving Private Ryan is that opening sequence, isn't it? But there's so many like better like set sequences or whatever they're called in Hacksaw Ridge, like amazing.
When they go up on the ridge for the first time, and
incredible. It's incredible.
Well, I mean, if you want to see like the best examples of those kind of like that kind of shot and genre of like kind of World War II film, for me, Band of Brothers just like wins, and I'd probably tack Pacific, which was made by the same kind of guys, on the end of that, because for me that's just epic and just in every way. It's kind of like got the kind of almost the docu-series kind of behind it of all the actual soldiers and guys that were actually there, kind of like feeding into the other side of it. Like this is what this guy was like, this is what this guy was like.
Oh, cool.
And then that was that. So for me, if you want to go watch something along those lines, definitely go check that out.
Nice.
Yeah, I
bit off topic.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's always good to recommend that. I mean, that's why we do this podcast. Really, it's such a great opportunity to
nerd out about film.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously Moonlight. Charlie, give us your first impressions. What did you think of it?
So it's one of those films, like all three of these films we're talking about today, actually, that has been hyped up for me for years and years, and it's always been on my watch list. And it's just one of those where I was like, "Oh, I'll watch that at some point in the future," and I never get around to actually putting it on. And like, aside from Casablanca, all these films I was blown away by from actually watching them. And I know you guys weren't so much of Moonlight, but it really captured me.
So if people haven't had a chance to watch Moonlight at home, Moonlight is about a young African American man and his coming of age. It's presented as 3 stages of his life. You see him as a very young boy, and then a teenager in high school, and then as a grown up man. And he's dealing with growing up and in a very difficult neighborhood in Miami, and he's also dealing with his sexuality because he's gay. So it has all the ingredients to be a really great coming of age film. You look at something like Call Me by Your Name, or like we're going to talk about Boyhood as well. It's the kind of film that leaves you feeling kind of uncomfortable in a good way. Like, physically you feel light watching it, but also it's quite psychedelic in its presentation, and you feel like the scenes that in the film are delivered to you like intravenously. So if our listeners have managed to watch it, they'll know that those kind of anamorphic lens shots where it's just out of focus and so sort of shaky cam. And
that was my one gripe with the film, and it's why it didn't get 5 stars, is the focus of like the vignette. I hate that style of filmmaking. I hate it. That's the one reason it didn't get 5 stars.
Oh, interestingly, a bit of trivia that you'll really like is that the director Barry Jenkins took a lot of inspiration from Wong Kar-wai for the film.
I can see that.
And you can really see that. So Ben Wong Kar-wai is this. He kind of pioneered the Chinese new wave of film. Well, sort of more Hong Kong, not Chinese.
Yeah.
Hong Kong new wave of film in the 90s and early 2000s, and he was his cinematography was renowned for being blurry and fast paced and choppy and poorly edited, but
also beautiful.
But also really beautiful.
Yeah, it's kind of got its own aspect.
Learning that Barry Jenkins took a lot of inspiration from Wong Kar-wai's films, you can definitely see that.
Just the color, like the whole color scheme of the film, really shouts that.
So you largely enjoyed the film. Again, I kind of attribute that. You're very easy to please, I think, with coming of age films. I think you enjoy them a lot, don't you?
Yeah. Another thing that because I know we're going to talk about Boyhood in a bit more depth in comparison to it. But one thing Boyhood does that I really enjoy is there's no titles telling you when an age gap has been bridged or they've moved on to other things in life. But where this film has that, I think it's Little, Black, and Sharon, isn't it? I think they have those.
I think it's Little,
those titles.
Sharon, and then Black. I think Black is
that's
the name he gives to himself or something. No, it's the name that the guy he loves gives to him, isn't it? Yeah.
But that's my another gripe with the film is that it doesn't need that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they definitely the little details in the film, kind of tell you that. It's the one that really sticks with me, mainly because I saw it at the end. Is his number plate on his car at the end when he's a full grown man is black.
I never noticed that.
Yeah,
cool.
It's on the back. It was a weird one. I didn't see it until the very end. But then when you think about it, we had like a 30-second shot at the back of the car, which I suppose is probably when we were meant to notice it, but I totally missed it.
I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think, to be honest, that was when I was starting to switch off.
Right.
Towards the end. I think Ben will agree with me here. We had a brief chat about it before we hopped on to record, but the first sort of third of the film I thought was magnificent. The relationship between Mahershala Ali's character Juan, and then obviously Naomi Harris plays this junkie mother. All wonderful. Like I said, all the ingredients were there for this to be this really like heart wrenching and forward thinking kind of positive coming of age film, and I just loved it. And my favorite part is when Juan is teaching him to swim.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to me,
Oh yeah,
you know,
100%.
it's kind of like a baptism for him.
It's a very boyhood moment where like it's
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
really significant, but it means a lot.
Yeah, I liked that. I thought for me that was definitely my favorite scene. I
Mhm.
mean, it was probably the first time I really sat up and took notice of the kind of cinematography, you know, and the kind of the way it was being shot with the camera like bouncing in the waves, and it was like half in, half out the water,
Mhm.
and the sound like was really like, you know, he was, as he's saying, like, you know, trust me, I got you. You know, the waves are crashing over, and you can like, it's, you know, yeah, you very much felt like you're almost there, and it was just, you know, there was laughter, there was kind of almost just like honesty. You know, both characters would dropped you know, kind of the facade that they put up to everyone else, you know, as in their lives. You know, he's no longer the, you know, a hard hitting drug dealer, you know, or like kind of drug kingpin. He never really was a dealer, was he? He was kind of like
Yeah.
heading up the operation,
Yeah.
and then he like kind of drops, and then, you know, Little kind of drops the persona of this kind of the victim, which I'll talk about separately because that kind of really switched me off. But the kind of, yeah, he was just laughing and happy, and it was just a really nice scene. And that
Mhm.
I would agree with, you know, like Joe said, I agree. When we got to see Marshall Ali, like that, he was my favorite character in the whole film, and he was only in it for like, I don't know, 40 minutes.
Not even that, is 20, and he
Is
wins
it actually
the
only 20?
Academy Award-winning supporting actor.
That's got to be a
20
record,
minutes of
right?
screen time. Yeah.
Yeah, surely that
Yeah.
is a record. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, Moonlight does set quite a few records. Adjusted for inflation, it's actually the lowest budget Best Picture winner
I was going to
in
talk about that
Well,
history.
okay.
actually,
Yeah.
because when you look at it, I think the budget was 1 to 4 million. There's not like an exact figure, and it
Yeah.
made 63 in the box office. Like
Mhm.
that's and you have to pay for it to watch it on Amazon, and it's like £3.50. So they're
Yeah.
probably still raking in a fair old bit of money for it. But that's like
Before
a
then, it was Rocky.
huge,
It was
yeah.
Rocky back in the late 70s.
Wow.
Wow.
So yeah, and even adjusted for inflation, it still had a smaller budget than Rocky. So yeah, it I think, like I said, it's a very successful film, and it had all the ingredients there. But you know, when I've seen something like Boyhood or Ladybird or The Perks of Being a Wallflower,
Ladybird has a lot to thank for this film though, because it came out after, didn't it?
I suppose, yeah. But I mean, there's even what I thought the Moonlight was really missing for me was just some of those high notes, you know, that you need to show that life can be full of lemons, but you can still make lemonade. And there
It
wasn't
ends
a
on
lot
that.
of that. Yeah, but
Does it
then,
though? Like, does it? For me, it was just unfinished. Like,
yeah.
I didn't. The ending for me, I wish they ended it. You know, when the bell rings in the cafe.
Mm,
Right. Yeah.
You know, when they sit down and they're kind of having the wine, and they're kind of like really awkwardly talking about, you know,
hmm
what they are to each other, and like their lives. Like when the bell pings and the camera like flicks to it, they could have just left that. I would have been happy there. I didn't need the end.
I agree that it should have ended in a cafe, and it should have ended with that song playing out
hmm
over
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
credits. That's
Like they set it
yeah,
up perfectly. Yeah, and
yeah.
they just
Would have been a much better ending. But
hmm
I do think that the ending is that high point that you're after, Joe.
Yeah, it just didn't get me. You know, it didn't make me feel warm and fuzzy like a coming of age film usually does.
Right.
You know, and so here's my kind of big take on Moonlight is that I feel like it should have been edited completely differently, and that would have made it much more engaging. So I think having these three very disconnected ages, these gaps in time,
Mm.
it made the first one very, very interesting. The second one also kind of interesting, and then when he's an adult, I was bored stiff.
Maybe it should have been intercut.
And that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. I think what I would have liked to have seen is the film opening with him being that drug dealer with his big gold teeth,
Yeah.
and then getting a call from his friend, and then it flashes back to them. I know it's a bit awkward, but them measuring their privates in the school gym, or them wrestling, because I think that those moments that we see in the film where the camera comes to a really personal point for the characters, and when the anamorphic lens goes into overdrive, and it starts getting shaky, those moments for me I really enjoyed, even though talking about cinematography, they were a bit of a gripe for you, but I think what they meant was that we were seeing his point of view in such a personal way.
It focuses attention, that style onto specific points.
And I feel like the camera was acting more as like memory than a spotlight. So it would have been so good to see, because I just feel like it was a waste of. He was clearly such a very talented actor at the end of the film. He was very nuanced.
Yeah.
But I think his performance would have been made 10 times better if they had intercut that with those memories of his, of being a young boy and then of being a teenager, and then engaging in his first sexual activity with the guy when he was 15. So it was all there. Don't get me wrong, like it was all very, it was all there to be that perfect coming of age film. It was I think just edited in completely the wrong way.
I think doing that intercrossing style would have eliminated the need for the titles as well.
Yeah. So that would be your gripes. That would be yours sorted out.
Yeah.
I think it would have, for me as well, I think it would have softened the transition a little bit, because for me, the transition from Chiron to Black, so from 15-year-old to, I mean, what was it? Maybe like 25 to 30. Yeah, I thought it was a bit older. Like for me, that was he's gone from being this, like, he was such a meek character that literally had nothing, and that for me, that was another issue with the character. Aside from basically just getting bullied, there was nothing else to him. Like there was nothing else to that character that I could identify with, or like, he's a 15-year-old guy. Like he's gonna, what 15-year-old doesn't have interests, doesn't have like, kind of signifying pieces of like that makes up his character. Like he just didn't have anything. He was just a victim, which kind of, kind of like I couldn't sympathize enough with him. Like I felt the film was trying to make me pity him, because obviously he's getting like horrendously bullied, but then I just couldn't quite get to that point. And then obviously he has this, he breaks out the mold, and is it plausible that the character can essentially sum up the courage to escape from that cycle of bullying? Yes, I think it is. We see in the film, he like basically just decides, you know what, I'm not having it. He walks in, it basically does the most stupid thing he could do and publicly assaults his tormentors, which obviously lands him in trouble with jail. And then literally we see him being marched off by the cops, and then skip forward, and he's now literally the spitting image of this kind of role model that we got to see for 20 minutes at the start of the film. Like, how has he gone? He's so assuredly mimicked everything. And I think, like you said, if it was cut different, like if we were able to see the older version slashed in with the new, like, with the kind of seeing Juan when, as he was a kid, maybe a little bit more, I think I could have identified with that a little bit easier, and it would have been easier for me to kind of accept it. But it just, for me, was just a bit too disjointed, and that kind of annoyed me.
How breathtaking would it have been to see where at the end of the film where he looks and he sees the beach where he was first touched by his lover, but then also where he was very symbolically baptized by Juan, this father figure. How amazing would it have been when he sees that beach, you then flash back to that moment.
Oh yeah, that would have been
And I know
epic.
they did do a little flashback of him just being a kid staring out, which is obviously why the film is called that, because it's based on an unproduced play. I think the title was something like Black Boys Look Blue in Moonlight. So he was very blue at the end, and I think we've hit the nail on the head there, chaps. I think just a little bit more editing, a less disjointedness, and it would have made those moments just feel much more special for me. I think it was shooting itself in the foot by being a little too nuanced, perhaps.
But I must say it was better than La La Land. So.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
But maybe not as good as Manchester by the Sea.
If I was to, I mean, looking at all of these films we have written down here for the 89th Academy Awards back in 2017, La La Land, Arrival, Lion, Hell or High Water, Hidden Figures, Hacksaw Ridge, Manchester by the Sea. For me, Moonlight's probably like midway on that for me. I would put Arrival above, Lion above, Manchester by the Sea above. Fences as well is incredible if you get a chance to watch that. Denzel Washington is
Hacksaw Ridge as well.
Hacksaw Ridge, yeah.
Very good year.
It was a very, very good year, a very close and tight year, I would say. But yeah, I think
it paved the way for LGBTQ plus films, though, for like future nominations and stuff like that.
And also, it talked about, it was the first year to really, really raise the issue of representation for BAME people in Hollywood, directors or writers. And
was this the year that Will Smith boycotted the Oscars because his film didn't get nominated? What was his film?
Not a clue.
No idea.
Can't remember. No, I can't remember.
Must have been very memberable if we can't remember.
No, I don't think it. I think it was. I think it was one of those. Yeah, it was one of those where it's like he should get a nomination, but it's like, should he though? Like, was it that good?
What I would say to listeners at home is, if you want to watch Moonlight, I think you should. I think it's a good one to watch and to have it as a comparison to other coming of age films. And I think it's different. It's definitely genre breaking, and I can see what it was trying to do. But maybe if it had come out this year, I'm not sure. I do feel, I feel like 2016 was the year that people didn't know how to end their films. La La Land and Hacksaw Ridge. Also, the ending for me is a little bit annoying as well. It was a little bit too fantastical, the ending, obviously, but yeah, Moonlight. Go and watch it. Let us know what you think. And I think we should move on and talk about another film.
Casablanca. The
1942.
The all-time classic. This is for like a film student. This is on par for people recommending and saying, "Have you watched it?" to like Citizen Kane. It like that's what level it's on. It's on this high pedestal, and oh boy, how it falls.
Is that your Twitter review?
It should be. I'll edit it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, why don't you go through what Casablanca was nominated for and what it won?
Yeah, sure. So it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Adapted Screenplay, Actor, Supporting Actor, Score, Editing, Cinematography. Quite a long list. It won Best Picture, Director, and Adapted Screenplay. So what's that? 3 of 7? 3 of 8?
Yeah. 3 out of 7. 8. There we go.
Yeah, 3 of 8.
Maths.
Out of all these films it was put against, I'd know none of them. Like, literally don't know any of those films. So it wasn't a very tough year.
Should we list them anyway, just in case anybody's curious?
Absolutely
okay,
not.
No.
Absolutely.
There's too many. There's loads there.
If you want to check out what it was up against, the
Google
16th Academy Awards. There we go. Wikipedia will be your friend. But obviously the main question with Casablanca is it as good as the hype says it is? Chaz, you mentioned before, all these films that we're talking about today, they've been very hyped for you, and I think this is the one that let you down, is it not?
Yeah, definitely. It's I didn't know anything about it going in, and it just I assumed it was a classic Hollywood love story,
mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you get thrown this like suspense thriller element to it, and it just didn't really click for me. I'm not a massive fan of Humphrey Bogart anyway.
Really?
I just don't think he's all that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a classic. It's a classic performance, and he suits that role. Obviously, it's like he was born to play it. But it doesn't tick all the boxes for me, I'm afraid.
He's certainly no James Stewart, really, is he? I suppose.
Yeah, to me, there's just no diversity to him. He just plays that role
But I think the film is quite successful in what it wants to do, and I do actually applaud its mixing of genres, which in the day you wouldn't do that in Hollywood,
Oh,
and
it's
not in the golden age.
it's very brave.
Yeah,
I'll give it that.
you've got film noir, obviously melodrama, German expressionism, and there's even like a few documentary elements
Yeah, romance
to it
as
as
well.
well, and romance. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think it's quite a subversive film. It really it makes you think it's going to be many things, and then just it completely goes in the opposite
But doesn't
direction.
succeed at any of them.
Yeah, you could say that absolutely. I think the main thing I took away from watching Casablanca is that how do you maintain a commitment? Rick is always torn between being an idealist and being a cynic. And it's kind of very evident that he struggles to maintain a commitment or a connection to other people. But I think the point is that it succeeds in exploring that philosophy, because I like that Rick and Elsa don't end up being together at the end.
Yeah.
Because there's something more important. The world's on fire, and the notion of commitment is more important towards the end of the film than actually, romantic commitment. And
it's a commitment to an idea rather than to an ideology rather than a relationship.
Yeah, and the timing of the film is it's iconic. It's disguising a film about morality and commitment, and obviously against the backdrop of World War II.
Yeah.
And I think it's great for that reason. I haven't seen it in quite a long time, but I think it does stand the test of time. And I think, adjusted for inflation, is the highest grossing film ever. Sorry, Avatar. Ben.
No, didn't Avatar take that off though, because it got re-released?
Yeah, no, not for Endgame. Yeah, but not for Casablanca. So at the moment, it's Avatar on 2.8 billion, Endgame at 2.7, but then adjusted for inflation, it's Gone with the Wind at 3.7 billion. Do we have anything else to say about Casablanca?
I was just going to say that I think for me, Casablanca, that question of is it outdated, does it stand the test of time? I think you have to just look at it with the lens that, remember, this was created like 80 years ago, and cinema, films and cinema today is a completely different beast. So I think you just have to look at it with that lens, and I think if you do, it is good, and like you said, it kind of does all these different genres, and it's still kind of entertaining, and you can appreciate it. But yeah, it doesn't it's not an Avatar, is it? Let's face it.
Nothing is in your eyes, Ben.
What I'll say, right? It's enjoyable, but in terms of an Academy Award winning film, it doesn't make me think and appreciate or unappreciate humanity in the way other award winning films have done.
I think that sums up Moonlight for me.
Okay, right.
To be honest, yeah. But I like that. I like that. This is why I like doing the festivals, and why I really enjoyed doing it back in December, is that obviously when we do a film of the week on our normal Shoal Weekly podcast, if we agree, I feel like we all agreed, last week when we talked about Gladiator, that it's a great film, and there's not much in terms of debate or and there's only so much discourse you can have if you all kind of agree.
Yeah.
But what I really like doing the festival for is that diversity and conversation, and the fact that we can come on here and with 3 films, it's okay to say I haven't watched this one, or didn't like it at all. And it's interesting to see the similarities. I think Moonlight didn't hit the nail on the head for Best Picture, and Casablanca, obviously for you, didn't as well. But we'll have to see if One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1975, can win us all over. But Ben, you didn't manage to catch this film, is that
No,
right?
I have not watched this one, so yeah, I
Just
don't
me
know
and
what's
Chaz.
going on.
Do you want me to give a rundown of it?
That would be great.
So it's based off a book by Ken Kesey, who's like a beatnik author from like the late 50s in America. And if you know anything about him, he started like riding around on a bus in the late 60s with like merry pranksters, just a group of people that took a load of acid basically. And he wrote this book and was like a cult hero. and I think he uses experiences from because he either worked in a mental institute or was a patient in one, and it uses those experiences to put it into the book, and obviously that shows through in the film as well. And it's an interesting look at how mental health was perceived back in the day, and also you can translate it to how it's perceived nowadays.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard one to watch, isn't it?
Oh, it hits
Yeah,
it hits hard.
it's sad. But then it's also not to sort of diminuate any kind of previous psychiatric history, medical history, but it's a good thing that we've come a long way since then. What the film
Yeah,
shows us, and I think perhaps when the film came out in the late 70s, it probably wasn't as much of a shock. But watching it now, I think it's more shocking now, which is rare for a film because you look at something like The Exorcist or
mm,
Alien, or A Clockwork Orange, let's say, films that get banned, and which now I think are trivial, really. You can watch them as a teenager, but One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is it's the opposite for me. I think it's so shocking now because we live in a society that is incredibly sensitive and delicate when it comes to mental health and representation, especially.
maybe that's because it doesn't show itself as a horror or a shocking genre. It's disguised
Hmm.
itself as like a drama piece, and again, maybe a bit of a coming of age piece in a way.
Yeah. So essentially, Ben, Jack Nicholson plays this main character, and he's got in trouble with the law for various crimes, and he's read somewhere that that there's this loophole that if he admits that he's mentally ill, he won't go to prison for a long time. He'll just have to go to a mental hospital, and so he essentially goes. He gets incarcerated into this mental hospital and just pretends to be a bit crazy.
Right.
And what he
Mm.
actually finds is he forms quite a lot of close relationships with the patients in the hospital, and he comes head to head with Nurse Ratchet, who is this incredibly evil, up there with the likes of Darth Vader and Scar from The Lion King. She honestly, if you look at if any list of like top 10 greatest movie villains of all time,
Mm,
she will be there.
She a bit like Miss
Um,
Trunchbull from Matilda,
oh
you know?
yeah,
yeah, but
worse
less
though.
comical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
less comical. So she's this. She's the head of the ward, and she has this incredible power complex, superiority complex, and up until the arrival of Jack Nicholson's character, she believes that she has complete control over these patients, and the way that she manipulates them and her language is completely disgusting and um, not the standard in which we hold with great regard today in terms of mental health. So that's very shocking to see. But obviously, she comes head to head with this incredibly charismatic kind of loose cannon Nicholson character, and uh, early on in the film, he actually escapes from the hospital with all the patients on a stolen school bus just to take them fishing because they've just been trapped there for ages and they're not really allowed to go outside. Um, and yeah, it's quite a sad ending.
but also hopeful, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, watch it if you get the chance because it's a great, and I would argue it's the best film we've got this week
Definitely.
to talk about. But controversially, you find this a lot. I know the author of the book really, really hated the film.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Um, yeah, so the author Ken Kesey, I think
Easy,
his
yeah.
name, or Casey, yeah, he was so bitter about the way the filmmakers were butchering his story that he vowed never to watch the film, and he even sued the producers because if you read the book, it's shown from the perspective of Chief Bromden's. He's this huge, big Native American guy, and obviously he's in there. He's in the mental hospital just for the fact that he is Native American, and
Mm.
which is terrible.
Yeah.
But the novel's from his perspective, which the author argues is a better way to view the story because the chief is a very calm and quiet character, and then all of a sudden this big lively guy comes in trying to like own the joint basically. But yeah, no, the author years later claimed that once he was lying in bed flipping through the TV channels and he spotted the movie, didn't know it was his book, and watched like 20 minutes of it before he realized that it was his film, and then he changed the channels.
Wow.
But
Well,
yeah,
the author of the original idea took 20 minutes to realize that film.
yeah,
like,
but he argued that that's
yeah,
because it was butchered so much.
that's what I mean.
That
Like, that's what I mean.
yeah,
Like, they've changed it
yeah,
so much he doesn't even recognize it. That's
I've
quite
read
impressive.
like half of the book, and one thing I will say is that in the book he describes like Nurse Ratched and all the other like employees as like cogs in the machine of the system, and I don't think that shows in the film very much, which is a shame.
No, it's more of like Nurse Ratched becomes more of like, I don't want to say a caricature because she's more developed than that, but do you know what I'm trying to say? Like not on a caricature, but definitely not this like you said, part of this bigger issue, this bigger machine.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it's just kind of like she's a loose cannon lone wolf kind of law unto her own.
I suppose you still get like the sense that McMurphy is combating the system, but not in the same way that Kesey puts it in the book.
Yeah, I'll have to read the book. I haven't.
It's good. Like the whole beatnik like genre, I suppose you'd call it now. I'm a huge fan. There's like On the Road by Jack Kerouac is
of
another
course.
great one.
Of course, yeah. Speaking of Nurse Ratched, it has the franchise has been quite successful in the past year because Netflix have done an original series about the nurse in her younger years before she goes to that mental hospital to work. So apparently it's had amazing reviews. So go and check that out. It's just called Ratched on Netflix.
Is that like based off the film or the book more? Do you know?
I'm not actually sure. All I know is that it's just her character before going into the hospital, whether it's more in line with her character in the book or more in line with the iconic kind of character in the movie. I would suggest it's more based on the movie. You find that a lot, especially when authors haven't enjoyed their adaptations.
Right.
Look at Stephen King with The Shining.
Yeah.
The Shining is one of the most successful horror movies of all time and one of Jack Nicholson's iconic roles. But Stephen King absolutely hated the book, the movie. Sorry,
Stephen King hated his own book.
He hated his own book, and so much so that he even wrote a screenplay for a TV adaptation in the 90s, which was just terrible. More faithful to the book, but just really, really bad. So when it came to Ewan McGregor starring in the sequel to The Shining, Doctor Sleep, in 2016, you actually found out that it was a continuation of the Stanley Kubrick film and not a continuation of the Stephen King book, because and it wasn't an original film. It was also based on Doctor Sleep, a book by Stephen King, a sequel to The Shining, but they decided to adapt it from the perspective of the Stanley Kubrick film from 1980. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ratched on Netflix is obviously taking the source material, but then adapting it to be more in line with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest from 75.
I suppose films have more reach, don't they? People watch a film more than they read a book, so I suppose it just commercially makes sense.
And it was incredibly successful. I think it's a fantastic film. It's a 5-star film for me, absolutely. And it's tied with Silence of the Lambs and It Happened One Night from 1934 for winners of all 5 major categories.
It Happened One Night is amazing. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah, I've never seen it. No,
it's class.
But
it's really
all
good.
3 of those films got Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, and Best Screenplay.
Wow.
Yeah, so the big 5, and only 3 films have ever done that. And Silence of the Lambs, quite a dark horse there to do that. Being a horror to get all 5.
Yeah.
Incredibly hard.
Well, looking at what One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was up against, it was up against Barry Lyndon, Jaws, Nashville, and Dog Day Afternoon.
Never heard of Dog Day Afternoon, but
neither have I.
Yeah, Barry Lyndon
and Jaws,
Kubrick there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolute banger you've written here in the notes.
I have, yeah. 5-star, absolute banger.
Yeah, absolute banger.
That's the Twitter review.
Well, I would say we've had a good chat about these films for sure. There's plenty more to come. So obviously we can't talk about each film for an hour, otherwise we'd be here all night, and I'm pretty sure our listeners at home would get very bored. So you can look forward to 3 more episodes like this. So we'll be back next weekend as well with another catch up of the films we've done throughout the week. I believe tomorrow's film of the day is going to be the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I know that's 3 films, but it's really, we're going to be talking about like the overall production and that singular story stretching over 3 films as well. So yeah, if you're looking forward to that, it's a good week next week. We've got some pretty good films. Looking at the schedule, you got Lord of the Rings and Citizen 4. I'm really looking forward to. I know you guys haven't checked that out.
I've seen it.
Have you seen it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay,
really
good.
good, yeah.
Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about that. Ben, that one will shock you in a good way.
Which one? Sorry.
Citizen 4.
Citizen 4.
It's like, it reminds me of, we did Can't Get You Out of My Head. It gives you that existential dread like that does.
Ben's like, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Just like, the one thing that I really struggle with existential crisis is great.
Well, this has been really great to talk about these films. I've been looking forward to this all week. Obviously, very happy Easter from all of us here at Shoal. We will be back next week to talk about some more films. We will be updating the socials pretty much every day with more news about our Academy Awards watch along. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Please do be sure to leave us a like, subscribe to us on YouTube, or follow us on Spotify if you can. Our listening numbers are going up, which is amazing, and we can't thank people enough for taking the time out of their quite busy lives to listen to us whenever or wherever you are. So yeah, as always, this has been Joe, Ben, and Charlie, and this has been the Shoal Weekly Podcast, bringing you the Greatest Showman Online Film Festival, and we will catch you next week. Cheers. Bye bye for now. Are we ready for some smooth jazz?